So, dear students, today joint class of MCOM Business Innovation as well as MCOM is going to be held because there is one common topic which is also in the syllabus of Business Innovation students as well as in the syllabi of MCOM general students. So, the basic purpose of today's lecture is to give you the glimpse of statement of cash flow. Sometime we name it as cash flow statement, and there is one international financial reporting standard also on this particular issue, that is IAS 7. And secondly, we have a very important standard in India also, which is a converged format of IAS 7, that is IND AS 7, Indian Accounting Standard 7. So we have studied the cash flow statement or statement of cash flows right from the beginning when we were in the secondary, senior secondary level, then we were in the graduation level. We are studying this concept time and again. Now, why this issue is very important today to discuss? Because earlier the statement of cash flows or cash flow statement was not prepared as a part of the financial statements. It was prepared and it was shown in the annual report to just help the various stakeholders so that they can analyze the position of liquidity and solvency of the organization or the company. And every company, every organization was using its own format of preparing the statement of cash flows or cash flow statement. But with the passage of time, when the accounting standards were given more importance, much importance, it was thought that now the statement of cash flows or a cash flow statement should be having a particular standard and particular format and particular guidelines, and similarly we must have the some kind of particular recognition process, some kind of particular disclosure process that should be applied to all kind of concerns, so that we can compare the statement of cash flows of one organization with the another organization. There should be some kind of consistency, because earlier there were so many alternatives. I remember when we were in the graduation, we were usually preparing the statement of cash flows or cash flow statement, at that time it was called, and we were preparing two kinds of statement. One was funds flow statement and another was cash flow statement. So the funds flow statement was prepared to just evaluate the working capital scenario of the company, that from where the funds has come in the organization, at what places the funds has been spent. And the cash flow statement, which was earlier prepared in the format of T form, on the one hand, left side we take the cash inflows, on the right side we put the cash outflows, and finally the balancing figure was that cash in hand at the end of the period. Similarly, the cash in hand at the beginning of the period was shown. So that was just a reflection of the various kind of cash happenings in the organization, and there was no standard format. Every company was preparing, and different kinds of treatment was given while preparing. The earlier it was known as cash from operations. There was no demarcation between cash from operating activities, cash from financing activities, cash from investing activities. So now it was thought that with the passage of time there should be some standards, and every organization must follow such kind of rules. Though you have studied this particular topic at the senior secondary level and the graduation level, but now we are preparing all of you to teach further after your post graduation to the various classes. And conceptual clarity is very, very important from the student's point of view if you have to transmit and transfer this knowledge to the another people. So earlier at the graduation level, we were not focused much on the conceptual clarity. We were focused on preparing the cash flow statements. Now, presently, today's lecture, which we'll be discussing in the format of IND AS7 as well as in the format of IES7, so that you can have glimpse and a detailed conceptual clarity of the preparation of the statement of cash flows as well as the cash flow statements. So I have structured this module for statement of cash flows and cash flow statements in two segments. And in today's segments, we will be having detailed conceptual clarity of the various concepts which are related with the statement of cash flows as per IAS 7 and as per its converged format, that is the INDAS 7. So both the students of MCOM Business Innovation as well as the MCOM students must listen it very carefully and then give a further reading in your books so that you can have more conceptual clarity. My teachers always said to me that the more you read, more you get the clarification. The more you hear about the concept, more you get the clarification. So it is not there that you will be immediately getting the conceptual clarity after discussing this lecture with all of you. So therefore, it is important for you that whatever is discussed today, then you must try to read the various concepts, because now we have a very big library with you. You have the Google, which is, I think, the global library where you can find any concept. So I don't say that you listen to my viewpoint on this lecture only. You can listen the other people. The videos are available on the YouTube or in the Google format. So you can go and listen more and more so that you can have more conceptual clarity. The difficulty in all of us is that we don't try to read more and more. So that's why when you go out from the institutions after passing all these, you don't have anything in your hand, and when you are asked to give the detailing whatever you have studied at the post graduation level in the interviews, you don't understand the concept and you were not able to deliver at that point of time. So it is not the marks which are important, it is your conceptual clarity which is more important. So I hope you can understand my viewpoint and accordingly you can prepare it. So I have today structured a presentation for you, which I will be sharing with you now so that we can move ahead. So it is my humble request to all of you to close down your videos so that you can get a proper glimpse of this sharing of screen, in which I am going to share with you some kind of uh, the various concepts which are related with the IES 7 and as well as the IND AS7, that is related with the statement of cash flows as well as the cash flow statement. So this lecture has been structured to give the various kinds of glimpses which are very important from all of you to understand the various concepts. So this module has been structured to first of all understand what kind of statement of cash flows information is gathered. So I have divided into three segments. Number one is statement of cash flows, its usefulness and its format. So we'll be discussing so many things. We'll be discussing the usefulness of the statement of cash flows. We'll be discussing the various classifications of cash and cash equivalents, which we will be making while portraying the cash flow position of the organization and dividing them into various kinds of activities like operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. So then it is not there that we will be discussing only the cash items or the significance of the cash items also or cash activities also. We will be discussing the significance of non-cash activities also that may be presented in the notes to the accounts. So we'll be also discussing the format which has been prescribed by the IES 7 as well as the IND AS 7. So all organizations will be preparing their statement of cash flows or cash flow statement, whatever name you give them. So how it is prepared, what are the steps which will be following, what kind of methodology will be following, that is indirect or direct method for arriving at the position of the operating cash flows, operating cash from operating activities, that will be discussed. Secondly, we'll be discussing in detail the preparing the statement of cash flows with the direct method as well as indirect method, and their steps will also be elaborated. So first identifying the operating activities, then identifying the investing and financing activities, and then portraying them in the form of a format, and then net change in cash will be arrived at and will be find out. So using the cash flow, then it is not there that only we'll be preparing the statement of cash flows. We have to evaluate the purpose for which the statement of cash flows is prepared. The purpose is to give the information to the stakeholders in the form of liquidity position as well as the solvency position of the, so free cash flows, and we will be assessing the liquidity and solvency position of the organization with the help of this cash flow. So this is the structure of today's module, which we are going to spend time on it. And because it needs more than 40 minutes, so then I thought it fit that we must collaborate and join the class off, so that we can utilize the time of, and it is not fun that we must immediately repeat the lectures for everything. So we must utilize the time accordingly in a very, very sophisticated manner. So therefore, all these things will be discussed in the today's lecture. So the next is a usefulness of the statement of cash flows. Why we prepare the statement of cash flows? What is the urgency? What is the necessity to prepare the statement of cash flows? And why now, earlier it was not a part of the financial statement, now it is the fundamental part of the statement of financial position. Yesterday in the previous lecture for MCOM general students, we discussed the three statements. One was statement of financial position, second was statement of comprehensive income, and then thirdly we discussed the statement of changes in equity. And this is the fourth statement, which is a part of the financial statement. So earlier it was not a part of the financial statements. So why? What is the need for incorporating this as a part of the financial statement? Number one, because it is very important to evaluate the ability of the concern to generate future cash flows. If you have good assets, but your company or your organization is not going to generate fruitfully the cash flows, because you have to make so many payments, you have to pay to the employees, you have to pay your taxes, you have to pay your debt, your creditors. So if the proper management of the cash is not there, if it is found that your cash is not properly managed, how it is going to affect your organization? So it evaluates the ability of the concern to generate cash flows. Similarly, it will also evaluate the ability of the firm to pay the dividends and obligations. There are a number of concerns which we found in the organizations, that they are basically have good assets, they are earning good profits, but from the cash point of view, there is a crunch of cash in that. So they are not able to pay dividend, and it's immediate obligation, which is the requirements of the day. So similarly, it is the evaluation of the ability of the firm to pay dividends as well as the obligation. Next, it will evaluate, it will clear cut demarcation, that we will find the reasons for differences between the net income and net cash provided by the operating activity. Sometimes we have good profits, but wholesale is made on the basis of credits. We are not able to generate cash from our debtors, but we have to pay to our creditors. So this statement of cash flow will give you the difference between the net income, which is reported in the statement of comprehensive income or profit and loss account, whatever name you give, and then net cash provided by the operating activities. So similarly, it will evaluate and demarcate the how the cash has been affected by the investing activities and how the cash has been affected by the financing activities during this period. So this is the usefulness of this format of statement of cash flows and the statement of or cash flow statement, whatever name you give them. So the relevance. Now, question before us is what is the relevance of cash and cash equivalents? Because we read the various statements in accounting right from the last 20 years or 30 years we are studying right from the beginning that cash is the lifeblood of any organization, or we are saying that cash is the king of any organization. Without cash, their ability to pay off its immediate liabilities or its immediate obligations will not be judged. So if in a firm you don't have the sufficient cash or cash equivalents, you will not be able to pay off its debtors, you will not be able to pay off its various kind of creditors. So you will not be able to generate cash from the debtors, you will not be able to pay off the interest obligations, you will not be able to pay off dividend to the shareholders. So this will be a crisis in the organization if cash is not properly managed. So therefore, cash is the king of any organization, or the cash is the lifeblood of the organization. As blood is required in our human body to move and circulate, if the circulation of the blood is stopped, the human will die. So that's the position of the cash in any organization, or cash equivalents on, uh, of the organization. So this fact and this importance of cash is giving increasing attention on the companies that they must evaluate their cash generation and liquidity position, and which has led to a greater focus on the statement of cash flows by the financial statement users, regulators, and other commentators. So this is the one thing which we must evaluate. So the relevance of the cash and cash equivalents in the corporate world now can be judged from the four angles. Number one, it will give the reflection of the company's ability to generate future cash flows. So by examining the relationship between the items of the statement of cash flows, investors and others can better predict the amounts, timing, and uncertainty of the future cash flow. So if I am investing in the firm as a creditor and giving loan as a bank, as a financial institution, my priority will be to see its the statement of cash flows from the last 3, 4, 5 years, so that I can judge. For example, if you are individual or a salaried person, the banks demand a salary statement before giving you any kind of loan, because they want to judge whether the sufficient cash inflows are coming in his account, whether this person or the business will be able to pay off its current liabilities in time, they will be able to pay off its interest liabilities or its other liabilities or repayment of the loan, etc. So this is judged from the timing uncertainty of the future cash flows, which can be reflected from the statement of cash flows. Next is this will evaluate the ability of the company to pay off its dividend and meet obligations. Even employees, creditors, stakeholders, and customers should be particularly interested in this statement, because it alone shows the flow of cash in the business. So the reasons for the difference between net income and cash provided can only be evaluated if you have prepared the statement of cash flows. Otherwise, that's why it is very important that in the statement of cash flows format, which is given by IAS 7 or INDAS 7, which is a converged format, they have given and divided the cash flow activities into three segments, that is the cash from operating activities, financing activities, and investing activities. So investing and financing transactions during the period are evaluated, and by examining a company's investing activities and financing activities, a financial statement reader can better understand why assets and liabilities increased or decreased during the period. So it is an analysis of the financial statement which focus on two issues, that is the liquidity and solvency, and it also project the future liquidity and the solvency. So this is that's why it is very important that we must prepare this kind of a statement. So information about the cash flows of entity is useful in providing users of the financial statements with a basis to assess the ability of the entity to generate cash and cash equivalents and the needs of the entity to utilize those cash flows. So its cash should also not be available only for the purpose of just that the cash remains idle in the organization. That should be properly utilized also. So the economic decisions that are taken by the users require evaluation of the ability of the entity to generate cash and cash equivalents and the timing and certainty of their generation. This is very important. So that's why there was need that such kind of statements have a proper feature and proper format and some guidelines to prepare that, so that we can arrive at some kind of conclusions. So IND AS7 and IS7, they deals with the preparation of statement of cash flows or cash flow statement. So though this standard has some objective, that is this objective of this standard is to require the provision of information about the historical changes that is taken place in the cash and cash equivalents of an entity. So by a statement of cash flows which classifies cash flows during the period from operating, investing, and financing activities. This is one of the most important feature of the IND AS7 as well as the IES7, that they divide the various segments of cash, how the cash is coming and spent. They divide them into operating, financing, and investing activities. So as far as IAS and IND AS7 is concerned, so every entity, it prescribed that every entity shall prepare a statement of cash flow in accordance with the requirements of the standards. It is not there they will follow their own format or they are preparing their cash flow statement like a cash account and shall present it as an integral part of financial statement for each period for which financial statements are presented. This is the beauty. Earlier, the statement of cash flow was not integral part of the financial statements. Now, it is an integral part of the financial statement. So when I say that we have to prepare the 5 statement, this is one of the very important statement which explain you the position of cash and cash equivalents and what kind of changes in the cash and cash equivalents has taken place over a period of time in the organization. So outsider, any kind of stakeholder, they can just evaluate and find out that how the company is managing its cash, how whether it will be able to project the future cash flows on the basis of the information which is provided in this statement of cash flows. So IAS7 or the converged format of the IAS7, that is IND-AS7, they have moduled the whole IAS in certain kind of parameters or in certain kind of subheads. First, explain the key definitions. So IAS 7 the 7 para number 7.6 explains the key definitions which are involved, which are required to be understood to prepare a statement of cash flows. Similarly, then it provides a classification and presentation of cash flows as operating, investing, or financing activities. Then it also covers certain special topics which are needed to be understood to provide the deal with the various kind of topics. It is not there now we are working at the individual level, or the company is working at the Indian level also. We all businesses are working at the global level. So special topics need to be dealt. Similarly, there are non-cash items which relates with the investing and financing activities. They do not find a place in the statement of cash flows, but their importance in the notes to the accounts need to be discussed. And similarly, there are certain minimum kind of disclosures which are required to be made in even statement of cash flows, so that the readers of these financial statements can easily understood the position of cash and cash equivalents. So firstly, we'll be discussing the key definitions, because IAS 7 define the following terms. It defines cash, it defines cash equivalents, it defines operating activities, it defines investing activities, it defines the financing activities. Similarly, uh, this standard provide a guidance note that how to properly classify cash flows as operating, financing, and indicator examples of such cash flows. And it requires that cash from operating activity is presented using either the two methods has been prescribed to arrive at the figure of the cash from operating activities. You can use direct method, or you can use even indirect method. So both the methods has been discussed in this standard, and the companies has been given a flexibility, so they may use any kind of method regarding this. Similarly, there are certain kind of special topics which are dealt in the statement of financial positions. So they provide additional guidance for specific topics like foreign currency, because we have foreign currency transactions now, because the businesses are run at the global level. So similarly, it deals with certain kind of information and disclosure regarding interest and dividend, because as far as the interest and dividend is concerned, its position vary from organization to organization. In some organization, the interests are part of the operating activities, because their businesses are dealing with the lending finance and taking a loan. So dividend in some companies are just dealing with the buying of equity share and selling of activities. These kind of companies having an interest and dividend there, such kind of will be dealt in the operating activities. But in some organization, it may be relating to the investing activities, some may be relating in the financing activities. So this standard give a flexibility to deal with that. Similarly, how to deal with the income taxes, how to deal with investment in the subsidiaries which you have made, or in the associates which you have made, or in the joint ventures. And if there is a changes in the ownership interest, that also needs certain kind of guidelines and guidance, and this standard provides such that. Similarly, the non-cash items relating to investing activities, financing activities that basically do not require the use of cash or cash equivalents shall be excluded from the statement of cash flows and disclosed elsewhere in the financial statement. That may be in the notes to the account. Similarly, minimum disclosure requirements has been prescribed under this IAS 7 as well as IND-AS 7. So let us discuss first the key definition, which is very important definition regarding the cash equivalents, and dividing the cash and cash equivalents, their sources and their outgoings, in the format of operating activities, in the format of investing activities, and in the format of financing activities. So this standard has prescribed the key definitions under this. So let us discuss first cash and cash equivalents. So as far as cash is concerned, cash comprises cash on hand and demand deposits. For example, if you have deposited the amount of cash in the bank, in the current account, or in saving bank accounts, as the case may be. So it comprises cash in hand, which is lying in the organization, or demand deposits, where you can easily demand the cash without the loss of value. You will get the cash. Second category, which is included in the cash equivalents. And cash equivalents are the short-term, highly liquid investments that are readily convertible to the amount of cash, and they are subject to insignificant risk of changes in the value. So all those highly liquid investments, highly liquidable, some kind of securities may be there, and within a short period of time, you can convert them into cash without the loss of value or insignificant risk of change in the value. So what are the cash and cash equivalents? So this diagram or this pie chart which I have prepared will show you the cash and cash equivalents are the short term. That means, now what is the definition of the short term? 3 months or less. So short term, highly liquid investments and readily convertible into known amounts of cash and held to meet short term cash commitments, not for investment purpose. So basically, such things are included in the cash equivalent, cash and cash equivalent. So this is the definition which we will follow for preparing the statement of cash flows. So we'll be including two things. One, cash, which is readily available cash in hand, and the demand deposits, which are available with the banks, and without the loss of value, you can get back. Similarly, the cash equivalents, which are short term, and their span is 3 months. That's within 3 months, you can, without the loss of value or insignificant value risk, you can mature them and pay off its liability. So this is the definition which we'll be following for preparing the statement of cash flow. As far as IAS 7 is concerned, but because we have used the term short term here, as far as IAS 7 is concerned, it does not define short term, but does state an investment normally qualifies as a cash equivalent only when it has a short maturity, say 3 months or less from the date of acquisition. So consequently, equity or other investment that do not have a maturity date are excluded from the cash equivalents unless they are in substance cash equivalents. So the equities which are held, which do not mention any kind of maturity period, they will not be taken into cash or cash equivalent. So this degree, months time limited, is somewhat arbitrary. Some say 3 months, some say 2 months, some say more than 3 months. So in our view, exceptions to this 3 months time limit are rare, and investment with a longer maturity at exception may be included in the cash equivalent if there is a strong, if some security is 4 months old only, but without the loss of value, you can get it matured. So that can also be included in the cash equivalent. So any investment or term deposit with the initial maturity of more than 3 months does not become a cash equivalent. So suppose some securities has been issued for 1 year, but 9 months has already been passed. So you will not include them into the cash equivalent unless the whole maturity is there and cash is realized from that. So if I've already told you that from preparing the statement of cash flows, from the point of view of the preparing the statement of cash flows, we define the business activities into three segments. So three segments has been prescribed for this. So one is operating activities, we will define; investing activities we will define; and the financing activities we will define. So operating activities are the basically principal revenue generating activities of the concern. So they are not investing or financial activities. So what is the revenue generating activity for a concern? That will depend upon the case to case and from company to company. For example, earning of interest may be a revenue generating activity for financing firms who provide the loans and get the deposits from the public also. So here, if they pay any interest, if they receive any interest, it is because their revenue is coming in the form of interest only, or payment of expenses are in the form of payment of interest only. So for them, it will be an operating activity. So we have to identify to what are the various operating activities. We have to analyze the company's business first. What is the revenue generation activity of that concern? If you are a manufacturing concern, your sale is going to be your revenue generating activity. Your purchases are going to be your revenue expenses. So these are all operating activities which we'll be dealing later on in detail. Similarly, from the point of view of the investing activities are the acquisition and disposal of long-term assets. When we purchase any asset which is not for sale but for the use in the business, their acquisition and disposal of such kind of long-term assets like property, plant, and equipment or other investments not included in the cash equivalents. They are investing activities. So financing activities are the activities that results in changes in the size and composition of the contributed equities and borrowing of the entities. Suppose you raise some money by issuing new shares or you issue some new debentures. All these activities are basically financing activities. So from the business activities point of view, as from the point of view of IAS 7 also, we will divide into three segments: operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. So now let's discuss the operating activities, because these are the principal revenue generating activities. So whatever we'll be discussing, we will be discussing from the IAS or IND-AS 7 point of view. So understanding the extent to which operations of the entity have generated cash flows to repay loan, maintain the operating capability of the entity, pay dividend, new investment without uh, recourse to external sources of financing. So in operating activities, we'll be including cash received from the sale of goods and services, rendering of services. So if a person is dealing with the property business and he is selling the properties, buildings, land, and then buying it, now goods for them is building, land, and all these things. So cash receipt from sale of goods and rendering of services. If you are service provider, whatever services you are providing, that is your revenue generating activities. So that will be known as operating activities. Similarly, cash from royalties, fees, commission, and other revenues. So if you have a business of writing the books and publishing it, so royalty will be your principal revenue generating activity. So cash payment to suppliers for goods and services, this is also operating activities. Cash payment to and on behalf of the employees, that is also operating activities. Cash receipts and cash payment at the insurance entity for premium, claim, annuities, and other policy benefits which are treated as expenses. So whatever is that, that is treated as operating activities. Cash payments or refunds of income tax, unless they can be specifically identified with the financing and investing activities. If they are identified with the financing and investing activities, they will not be treated as operating activities. Otherwise, they will be treated as operating activities. So here the cash receipts and payments from the contracts, so they are also, if you are a building contractor or taking contracts, and on the basis of that you are earning some profits and distributing to your shareholders, so all these are revenue generating activities. So these are the operating activities as defined in the IAS 7. Then investing activities. As far as the investing activities are concerned, so it is related with the cash payment to acquire property, plant and equipment, intangible and other long-term assets, including capitalized development cost and self-constructed property, plant and equipment. So cash receipts from the sale of property, plant and equipment, intangible and other long-term assets, cash payment to acquire equity or debt instruments of the other entities and interest in the joint venture. If you are making investments, if your business is not related to the finance, so cash receipt from the sale of equity or debt instruments of the other entities, you have hold that as investment, then you sell it. Similarly, cash advances and loans made to other parties other than advances and loan made by the financial institution. So cash receipt from the repayment of advances and loans made to other parties other than advances and loans of a financial position. So cash payment or receipt for future contracts, forward contracts, these are the stock market related terms, option contracts and swap contracts. So all these are covered under the investing activity. So we will, whatever the cash receipts or cash payments or cash equivalents receipt or payment is there, that will be dealing in the investing activities. Then we have the financing activities. Cash freeze, because it is related with our equity. Equity may be owned equity or a loaned equity. So cash received from an issue of shares or equity instruments, cash payment to others to acquire or redeem the entity shares, cash proceed from issuing debenture, loans, notes, bonds, mortgages, and other short-term, long-term borrowing, cash payments of the amount borrowed. So cash payments by the lessee, because lease is a basically a financing activity. So if you purchase that lien cash payments are made, if you sell the lease. So all these are financing activities. So IAS 7 clearly define what are the operating activities, what are the investing activities, and what are the financing activities, and you have to follow all these. Similarly, IAS 7 also provides certain guidance note on interest and dividend, as I have already talked to you in the beginning of this lecture. So as far as the interest and dividend payments are concerned, it may be covered under operating activities, it may be covered under investing activities, or it may be covered under financing activities. So cash flows from interest and dividend and paid shall each be disclosed separately, first of all. So each shall be classified in a consistent manner from period to period, either operating, investing, and financing activities. So this IAS 7 give the flexibility to the, because their nature will vary from the organization to organization. So the total amount of the interest paid during a period is disclosed in the statement of cash flows, whether it has been recognized as an expense in profit or loss. If it is an expense in profit and loss, that will be treated as operating activities. If it is capitalized in accordance with the IAS 23 borrowing cost that we will discuss later on in the later presentations. So interest and paid and interest and dividend received are usually classified as operating. Usually it will be classified as operating activities or operating cash flows for a financial institution. However, there is no consensus on the classification of these cash flows for other entities. So interest paid and interest dividend received may be classified as operating cash flows because they enter into determination of profit or loss. So alternatively, interest paid and dividend received may be classified as financing cash flows and investing cash flows respectively, because they are cost of obtaining financial resources or return on investment. So if it is a cost of financial resources or a return on investment, we have to deal accordingly as a part of the financing activity also. So dividend paid may be classified as financing cash flow because they are a cost of obtaining financial resources. So alternatively, dividend paid may be classified as cash flow from operating activities in order to assist users to determine ability of the entity to pay dividend out of operating cash flow. So whatever methodology you use, you show them as a operating activities, financing activity, or investing activities, you have to disclose in the disclosure practices. That is the need of the hour. So next, because IAS 7 regarding interest received, interest and dividend paid and dividend received, it allows some flexibility in the classification of cash flows from interest and interest dividend and dividend paid. And they are separately, as long as they are separately disclosed. If they are separately disclosed, you can identify that this interest is relating to operating, this interest is relating with the financing and investing. So you can you have the flexibility of the classification. So each category is, however, classified in a consistent manner. It is not there in one year you include in the operating activity, in another year you try to include in the investing activity just to fabricate the statement of cash flow. This is not allowed, because while following the accounting policies, you must have the consistency. So interest paid and interest and dividend received are usually classified on the basis of that. Usually will classified as operating activities for a financial institution. If I am a financial institution, my business is to purchase the shares of the company, give the loan, take the loan. I am a financial institution, so interest paid and interest and dividend, whichever I have received, that will be treated as operating activity for that. So for other entities, accounting policy choice needs to be made. So commonly interest paid is classified as if you have taken a loan to finance the business assets. So it is classified as financing activities because it is a cost of obtaining the finance. Similarly, interest and dividend received are classified as investment because you have made investment outside the business, and that is an investing activity. So whatever interest and dividend you receive, that will be classified as the investing activity. Similarly, dividend paid are classified as financing activities because it is a cost of the obtaining the financial resources, because whatever equity share you have issued, that equity shares finance has been raised to finance the business resources. So whatever dividend you pay, accordingly you will treat as financing activity. So alternatively, they will be classified as operating to indicate the ability of the entity to pay dividends out of the operating cash flow. So this is the guidance note which has been given under IAS 7. So we must, similarly, there may be some non-cash items which may not be affecting the cash flow position of the organization. So it requires, IAS said that it requires that investing and financing transaction that do not involve inflow or outflow of cash. For example, you purchase the assets either by assuming directly related liabilities or by means of lease. For example, you purchase fixed asset, but property, plant and equipment, but issues equity in place of that, issues long-term debt into that. So neither the cash is paid, neither it is affected. So the acquisition of entity by means of equity issue or the conversion of the debt and debt to equity, this is not going to affect your cash position, but their disclosures must be made in the notes to the account. This is the beauty of our IFRSs and ISs. So there are two methods. Now let's come to the operating activities, how to arrive cash from operating activities. So cash flows from operating activities can either be presented either. There are two methods for that. One method is direct method and another method is indirect method. So in direct method, each major class of gross receipts. So in this, we'll be finding out what are the gross receipts from the various kind of principal revenue generating items and what are the various payments in the form of cash for principal revenue generating activities. So they are disclosed separately, and such as cash receipt from the sale of goods or services, cash payment to the supplies, cash payment to and on behalf of the employees, all are reflected. So under direct method, we will find out the cash receipts and cash payments, and finally the difference will be arrived at as the cash from operating activity. This is a direct method. In indirect method, why will say it indirect method? Because we have already the net profit figure, which is reflected by the statement of comprehensive income or profit and loss account. But in that net profit, various non-cash items has been deducted. Various items which are not related with the operating or revenue generating activities of the business, they have been added. So we will follow an indirect method. So profit and loss, whichever is given in the financial statements, that is adjusted relating to investing and financing activities and effect of non-cash transaction, effect of changes in the current assets and current liabilities is adjusted, and after that we will follow and arrive at the figure of the cash from the operating activity. So that's why it is an indirect method, not a direct method. So let's have a comparison of and a glimpse of how direct method and indirect method is used. So on the left side, I have here listed direct method, which is according to IAS 7. So first we will be calculating cash from operating activities. That is a direct method. We will find cash receipt from the customers. We will find cash paid to suppliers and employees, cash generated from the operation, interest received, income tax paid. So all differences will be having in net cash from the operating activities. So indirect method will take a profit figure which is given in the statement of comprehensive income or profit and loss account, whatever we are preparing, and we will make certain adjustments in it, like depreciation. It's a non-cash item. Depreciation is charged on the assets, but cash is not paid somewhere, but it has been deducted from the profit. That's why it will be added back. Similarly, if there is some foreign exchange loss is occurred because the value of a currency which is lying in our banks or in hand, that has been reduced, but actually the cash has not been paid. So such adjustment, because it is deducted from the profit, now added back. Similarly, investment income, which is basically investment income which is relating to the operating activities, interest expense, increase in trade and other receivable, which are the current assets, decrease in inventories, decrease in trade payables, cash generated from operations, interest paid, interest taxes paid. So all adjustments will be made in the net profit and will arrive at the figure of cash from operating activity. So this is the comparison of a direct method as well as indirect method. And finally, will follow a format of the statement of the cash flows. So in front we will have a company name, then we have statement of cash flows and the period cover for which this has been paid. So similarly, this is a statement which is in the vertical form. Cash flows from operating activities as direct or indirect method we have used. We will list all these items here, and net cash provided by the operating activities we will find out. Then cash from investing activities, we will find out, list out all individual items. Then cash from financing activities. So here we'll be finding out the net increase or decrease in the cash we'll be finding out, and cash at the beginning of the period, cash at the end of the period, and non-cash investing and financial activity, their list will be mentioned here. So this is the format which has been prescribed by the IND 7 or IAS 7 for preparation. So the first, this lecture, this module was basically based to discuss with you the basic structure of the IAS 7, the various concepts which are involved. One we will again discuss on another day, that is on after 2 days, because on 3 and 4th I have to go on additional assignment, so the class will not be there. On 5th we'll be discussing the practical aspect of the statement of cash flows, how to prepare it. So we'll take certain live examples, and accordingly you will be uh, given some kind of training. So now on your all videos again, so that we can have some discussion on it. All the students are requested to on their videos. So first, before I ask you anything, any query which you want to make, you can on your audio also. A person who want to say something or raise any query, they can. Akshay Vij, if you don't want to ask anything, then yes. Any question from any side? It is my humble request to you, all of you, that you should not make it a one-way traffic only. If it is going to be a one-way traffic only, it will not having any usefulness. So it should be a two-way traffic in which some queries from your side must come, so that we can have a better usefulness of these kind of lectures. First of all, I'm going to mute to all of you. Okay. So now you can unmute yourself and raise questions. Okay. 5902. Amandeep Kaur. On your video and audio. Yes, Amandeep. 5902.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. What do you want to say in regarding statement of cash flows?
Sir, it is basically a statement of recording inflows and outflows of cash. And today we have studied about the different concepts of cash flow, its usefulness, its formats, and different activities like operating activities, investing activities, financing activities, and about non-cash transactions.
Okay. So now I move to Aishwarya. Aishwarya, you have studied statement of cash flows in +1 or +2, then in management accounting also, while interpreting your financial statements. That kind of statement you were just having the glimpses of, because at that time also we prepare the the statement of cash flows on the basis of operating activities, financing activities, and then investing activities. After listening to the requirements of the IAS 7, do you find any difference which you studied earlier and now?
Actually, sir, I have seen the format you have that you have shown to us. Uh, I don't think so. There is any difference.
There is no difference. There are, I think you have not seen the format, but the
No, I have
difference
seen
is in the form of additional disclosures which are required. Because
actually,
when
sir,
you
it is
prepare
not
the
visible.
statement of, yes, yes,
Actually, it was not shown to मतलब मैं वहाँ पे मुझे क्लियरली शो नहीं हो रहा था, तो मैंने बुक से देखा था, तो बुक में तो
okay.
मुझे सेम नहीं लगा.
The presentation was not visible to you.
No, sir. Actually, it was disconnecting my class.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay, now I move to Kashika Bhatia. Let's move to Kashika Bhatia. She is sitting there. So on your audio, bete.
Yes, sir.
I was just asking, when you studied it in the management accounting, or now we are studying from the perspective of IAS 7, what differences you find it out?
So in management accounting, we had studied the funds flow statement also,
Hmm.
but in this we have studied only the cash flow statements.
Now fund
In
flow statement is not prepared.
the fund flow statements is included in the cash flow statement
Yes, yes.
because
That's the
cash
difference.
flows are incoming.
दूसरा disclosure requirements चाहिए ना, oh, that is very important. Earlier everybody was understanding cash from operating activities and investing and financing from their own viewpoint. There was no clear cut standardized definitions of these. So now we have the standardized definitions. So this is the difference between all these. So it is my humble advice to all of you that from the book also and from the great library of Google also you can download certain materials. It is not that every time you get it printed, you just go on the Google and study the various concepts which we have discussed, because a lot of research is going on all these issues. So you will be, more you read, more you get the clarifications. So the next part will also be a joint class, because I wish that some practical should be done and some practicality of these concepts should also be discussed with all of you. So one or two statement of cash flows we must prepare. Then I will be giving you certain assignments which you have to prepare for your purpose only, not to submit to me. You have to solve certain questions. So if there is any practical question is there, then you can solve it out, because it is not going to come as a the undergraduate level questions. It will be in the form of some kind of case studies. So for MCOM business innovation students, so you must focus on whatever the questions we discuss, whatever the concepts will be discussed, because that will be useful for your examinations. Because their system is that it is run only in our course. So in all India, we have running this course, no other college is there. So little bit some kind of internal design is also there in your examination. So that we will be, but from the MCOM point of view, so we'll be discussing in detail, because their aspect is on just a foundational aspect, enriching your knowledge, not from the much from the practical aspect, but we will do again some questions so that you can have a more clarity regarding the various concepts. So this was all today. So because I wish to save the time and utilize more time for discussing all these, otherwise it was not possible to cover it in 40 minutes. But when you break and join another day and then again start, then there is a break of the understanding of the concept. So that was the need of the hour. So I hope all of you may have marked your attendance in the chat box. So secondly, in future also, because we have Zoom has very good attendance system. So whenever you join, so when we'll get a list from the Zoom, who has joined and what are their duration on the stay. So a person who has less than 75% duration on the lecture, total time they spend, they will not be marked as present. So in future, I will be taking the attendance from the Zoom website instead of calling you one by one. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. So in future, we'll continue. Any point if you want to say, you may add. Otherwise, we will wind up this session. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much to all. Good day.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.